And we are live. Welcome, everyone. My name is Britt, and I'm the marketing manager at e-tron Technologies. We're very excited that you're here with us today for our very last Talk to an Expert of the year. We're going live every last Thursday of each calendar month, so please keep your agendas open. In case you miss any of them, they're on Spotify, YouTube, and on our LinkedIn. So make sure you follow us so that you can stay updated of for the latest updates. For those who don't know us, each one is an international technology scale up dedicated to making software defined vehicles a reality for OEMs worldwide. Our house rules: if you have any questions, please put them in the chat so they can be answered at the very end. So, for a special edition today, we have Umut, our CEO, and Marko Dekena, our board advisor, who will be taking over the conversation. Welcome both of you. Please introduce yourselves.
Thanks, Britt. I think very exciting to be here today. So my name is Umut Genç. I'm the CEO of e-tron and one of the founders. So normally I don't join this discussions. I'm on the other side, listening. But today we have a special guest. So I thought I have to be part of this podcast. It's also the last podcast of the year. So quick introduction about myself. So I studied electrical electronics engineering and then did my master's PhD in controls. And since 1998, I'm in automotive software electronics. So I got more than 20 years experience in that area. And in my last role before e-tron Technologies, I was at AVL. And I was very lucky to work with Marko Dekena very closely, more than 8 years at AVL. Actually, he was my manager for the most of the time. So I'm very happy that we got Marko here with us today to talk about the new leadership challenge in automotive when we have a big transformation and big disruption in the industry. So with that, Marko, welcome again. And before we go to our exciting questions, so let's hear about your background and yourself, please.
Yeah. So, Britt, Umut, thank you first of all for the invitation. I'm really very happy to be here with you and with all the listeners talking about new leadership, because I think that's a main topic, what makes a difference to be successful as a company in future. So just a few sentences about my background. I'm at heart and also from my education, I'm an engineer, a mechanical engineer. So I studied on the university, technical university in Munich, before I joined the Volkswagen Group, the research center in Wolfsburg, where I did my PhD on the RWTH in Aachen. This thesis was in the combustion engine area. And after my PhD, I was working for about 1 year at Volkswagen in the research center before I moved on to Audi, to the product management department, and I was responsible for all V-type engines at that time. After a few years, I started with MAN B&W Diesel, the large engine division of the MAN Group. And there I was the executive assistant of the board. And I was working very much with restructuring programs in UK, where we have integrated the Alstom engine division into the MAN B&W Group, and also restructuring programs in Denmark. So after 5 years, I worked and I moved and worked for MAN Commercial Vehicles, and I became the head of sales and service for all products which the MAN Commercial Vehicle Group has sold to third-party customers. So mainly bus customers, truck customers, but also yard and construction equipment and industrial customers. And then I moved to Graz, to Austria, where I became the executive vice president and member of the board of the Avia List GmbH group, one of the biggest engineering provider and solution provider for the automotive, but also non-automotive world. And I was responsible for some affiliates, for example, also for Turkey, where I was working first time together with Umut. He was the managing director at that time. And I was also responsible for business units, for example, for the commercial vehicle business unit, but also for special purpose vehicles and for large engine applications like rail, power plants, and so on. And then I moved, so after 11 years, being a board member of this company, I moved to INNIO Jenbacher, and I became the executive vice president, sales and service, order processing, and product management for the large engine, which are used then for big power plants to produce electricity. So fuels, those engines, they were running on fuels, natural gas, but also 50% of all engines also were at that time already running on renewable gases, for example, biogas and also hydrogen. Now I'm the board advisor of e-tron Technologies Ltd in the UK. And again, I'm really happy to share half an hour with you to talk about leadership.
No, thank you. Thank you, Marko, and welcome again. I think it is, yeah, very good to have you with us with all that experience. So I'd like to start my questions actually to go back to your beginning of your career, right? When you joined Audi in 1998 as a product manager, what were the personal reasons then, to go after this role?
That's a good question. At that time, the passenger car, what was the heart of a passenger car? It was the engine, right? Powertrain, but especially the engine. And I was an engine guy. And as you know, Audi has launched the first direct injected diesel engine. And I wanted to be part of this journey, of this exciting journey. So I would say it was the technology which has motivated me to join Audi. But secondly, also, I wanted to have a job where I could have a significant impact to the success of the company, because I always have been an entrepreneur at heart. So then there was another argument. It was the company brand name, which was also important, and the size of the company, because size always gives you a kind of security, right? And last but not least, also the salary, which was very fair. This was also a reason to join Audi. I would say all four arguments was a good package to say this is a part of my future.
No, thanks, Marko. Of course, this will later on will support our, the new leadership discussion. But let's stay around Audi a little bit, because Audi always been a very innovative company. So at the time, what do you think was very critical for such an innovative company like Audi? What were the important things?
I think as today, it was always the people in the company. So brave and skilled people with pioneering spirit. I think they make the difference. When you look to the innovation of Audi at that time, it was huge and really motivating for young people also to join this company. So I mentioned the first direct injected diesel engine. So it was the TDI. But when you remember also the pro-content system, security system in the car, the all-wheel drive, the quattro drive, for example, and last but not least, also the Volkswagen platform strategy. So this group was the first one who has introduced this idea in order to become very price competitive, to use many parts in many different cars. So this was very, very innovative at that time. But then also the high quality of the products was also one of the success factor of this company. So when you remember, some companies or a lot of companies, they had problems with rust still. Today it's not a matter anymore. It's not an issue anymore. But at that time it was a big issue. And Audi was the first company which has introduced the first zinc-coated car body, and then rust was no issue anymore. So product design, it was also always and still today very important for the success of a company. So you see, all what I mentioned was hardware related, right?
Yes.
So software at that time was just hidden in the background. Just for controlling the injection system of an engine, for example, but there was no real interaction between the car and the driver, so no software interface. This is different today.
No, definitely. But we kind of remembered those good old days, right? And to bring it with today's, I mean, how do you compare those good old days with the today's, new challenges and changes industry?
And the trend to software-defined vehicles is the biggest change, I think. Cycle times for software are very much shorter than for hardware development. So when you look today, you have every day a software update with new features, right? And with this also a big need of other skills come up. So mechatronics, for example, and software skills. This is a big need for the whole automotive industry today, not only for the OEMs, but also for the suppliers. Then secondly, the different and sometimes also untransparent competitive landscape. This is also a big difference than the good old times, let's say it in this way. So companies like Tesla, for example, yeah. So a lot of startups on the supplier sides as well. They have a lot of money, a lot of innovation, and they are growing fast. And quickly they become a dangerous competitor. So 25 years ago, there was nearly no risk capital in the market. Maybe it just started in the US because interest rates were much higher at that time. So this is very much different than the good old days. So, and then there is also one very, very big aspect and impact also. It is the generation or the new expectations of the new generations, Y, and also more and more of the generation Z. So the young people, they question old and well tried structures and working models. They demand more and more equality, which is good. For example, gender equality or origin or payment between female and male, role allocation within the family. So it goes through the whole, through all areas in your life. And since their childhood, they are used to be part of decisions. So they are also asking the same to be part of the decisions also in their job. They have seen a lot of crisis in the meantime. Yeah, look to the last 5 or 6 years. So they have learned how to deal with uncertainties. They are more flexible than people at that time 20 years ago. They are adaptable and they like to keep options open. All of them, they are in the meantime digital natives. They are grown up with smartphones, with instant messaging services. They know how to do online shopping, online partner search as well, and they don't want to miss discomfort in their job. So they are always on, no matter where they are. And then now the new generation Z comes up, right? So they are again very much different. they like to work for a company with very stringent ethic rules and which really complies to those rules. No green bashing, that's what I mean. No green bashing anymore. And they want to see that the company really lives the value they are claiming. They want to do something really meaningful in their job, nothing normal, but something really meaningful. And due to the fight for talents, which is going on more and more, they are also very demanding when it comes to flexible work models, for example, home workplaces and so on. So they are, what I see, they are not so much motivated by money, rather than by a better life, work-life balance, right? All this has a major impact to the whole industry, automotive industry especially, to the products, to the people who are involved, to the processes, but especially, I would say, to the leaders.
No, Marco, I think you really described quite well and comprehensively, all different changes. So there is a lot more competition. The time scales are changed, everything goes faster. There is something called software-defined vehicles. By the way, please keep writing your questions. I see that in the comments we have questions. We have also some good colleagues, like good friends online as well. Ike asking some difficult questions. We will come back to that, Ike and Bill Guy. Thank you for that. But then Marco talk about people are changing, generations are changing, their expectation, and what they are looking for in an exciting company is completely changing. And that's why we say this is now radically changing times, right? It's not 1, 2, 3 parameters are changing. There are 5 or 10 parameters are changing at the same time. And of course, that makes it very, very difficult for the leaders at the moment. So, Marco, let's talk about the leaders in automotive. I mean, what all of that change, what does it mean for the leaders in automotive?
As you mentioned, the change is radical, I would say. Yes, I fully agree. And also with this change, the requirement of leadership is also changing. So meanwhile, many companies, they have recognized that they need to adapt in order to be competitive and to attract young people to join the company. But as you know, to change a culture, this is by far the longest change of all change processes, right? What we need in the industry are leaders in automotive with a digital mindset. So we need this kind of skill set. We need people who are acquainted to faster cycle times, to more or shorter cycle times. We need people with more flexibility. We need also people who can integrate the employees, who likes to listen and I would also say, who likes to learn instead of commanding the people, who are inspiring instead of demotivating the people, and who trusts people and let them grow instead of micromanaging them. We need leaders who can create an environment where people are motivated to go really to the edge, not only in technology, but also to the edge of motivation, in order to make a real difference. We need people who are acquainted with modern tools. That's also very important. And who have the ability to motivate people to go for the best result. I mean, intrinsic motivation, that's what I want to say. We need leaders who have an imagination of how the generation Z especially want to live in future and what can motivate them to join our or their companies.
No, thanks, Marco. And I mean, clearly, yeah, there is a lot of pressure on the leaders at the moment in automotive, and we also actually see that around us. We are following the headlines, but also we need leaders who can make, I think, quick decisions and take decisive actions. because of all these big changes. Now and the last two questions, by the way, audience. So please, stay with us, and then we'll move on to your questions. Coming to that one, I mean, we like to talk about software-defined vehicles and what does this, what it means for this new leadership challenge. But maybe quickly, I mean, for us or for me, software-defined means that software plays a much bigger role in the operation of the vehicle, also differentiation of the vehicle, the number of ECUs either increased or the size of capability of the ECUs are not engine control, alt habits, electronic control units are kind of increased. But again, for people like us who have been in automotive for many years, right, we know that in the last 10 years, we all talk more and more about software on the edge, software in the cloud. So this is how we understand about all this software-defined vehicle or software-defined components. But coming back to the leadership challenge, Marko, what does it mean for the leaders today? All that buzzword, software-defined vehicles.
This is a really good question. So the era of let's take the expression of software-defined vehicles mean a real paradigm change for everybody in this industry, right? And all established companies, they have big problems with this transformation process. Well-established business models, I mean, selling hardware mainly, they don't work anymore because production costs are increasing and companies cannot pass through those higher costs to their customers. At the same time, new digital companies with subscription models, for example, Netflix and co, they are coming up and they are really earning a lot more money and earnings. They have a lot more earnings like the other companies, like hardware-related companies. Look to the evaluation of those newcomers versus established automotive companies as Volkswagen and the big suppliers, you name it, ZF or Bosch and so on. So the automotive world needs to redefine themselves, to build software-defined cars with subscription models, for example, pay-per-use and so on. That means for the leaders, they are confronted with the change of the mindset of a new generation, change of the products, but also the change of business models and change of their own management style. Because otherwise, they will experience the same disaster what we have already seen in the US, the great resignation, right? And I think this also will come, maybe partly, but will also come to Europe.
Thanks, Marko. Now I'll quickly go to my last question, then we will start taking questions from the comments. So please keep writing. I see all these questions, and it's really nice to see, several questions there. But the last question, and that's relevant for the younger audience, the young engineers, young managers who wants to be, the strong, resilient leaders in automotive. What are your recommendations, advices for the young people rising up in the industry today?
I think the young people, they have very, very good chances. But my recommendation would be, you as a young professional, you need to train your soft skills in parallel as you're doing it with your professional skills. It's on the same priority level, I think. You should question your own communication skills, your attitude, but also your values, or your value room, your individual management style. This is a real success factor for you as a young professional for your future. Think about whether what you know about yourself, whether this is in line with the future leadership requirements. So there is a lot of support. So you can also ask for support. I think that's also a good thing to ask for support and also reflect yourself. And then you will be a very successful leader in the future. I think so, yes. And it's a good investment.
Great. No, thanks, Marco. It was really nice discussion. And Britt, we are ready to go
Hello.
to the comments and the questions from the audience. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both for the lovely talk. Well, let's fire off with the questions. Ike is asking, there are lots of discussion, how much of an expert does a manager/leader have to be? What is your opinion? Marco?
I think in the meantime, it goes back that also within big companies like Volkswagen Group, for example, you should have a solid and a good foundation also as an expert if you want to become a leader. For example, a manager of the software department should be a software person who has a good and deep knowledge about software. Not micromanaging that, but I think you need a good foundation to understand what your people are doing.
Thank you. He's also asking, I think the term software-defined vehicles is wrong. It's more system-defined, and software is the enabler for many.
I can take that question if it's
Okay.
okay, because it's quite, I think, a technical one. Actually, by the way, I agree with Ike's comment there. The reason we use software-defined vehicles because this is the buzzword, right? In every industry, every few years there are new buzzwords. This doesn't mean that software is not critical; it's very critical. But the terminology, of course, comes from this the buzzword itself. But if you look at the way we develop software in automotive, right? Because our software is safety critical, and there are certain processes we have to apply, like automotive spice. And the backbone of automotive spice is systems engineering. So if you need to do the automotive software properly for this, the new vehicles, electric vehicles, the autonomy connectivity, you have to start with systems engineering. So technically, I would agree with Ike, but the popular name is software-defined vehicles. That's already complicated for the general public. So we'll stick to that one, Ike. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Gates asking, how has the role of leader in automotive changed from 1998 to 2022? Marco?
How has the role of leader changed? Okay. So I think especially the attitude of the leaders is very much different. So the commanding from the top has changed to a more style of listening to the people, to integrate those people into your decisions, to be, I would say, faster in the decisions also, but also to have better decisions than in the past. Because if you are a leader, you don't know everything, and you need information in order to take the right decision. And therefore, you should integrate people into your decision. And that's done today more than in the past. I think that's the major change of the last 20, 25 years.
Thank you. Our next question, I guess, for both of you. Mustafa is asking, we see that you worked both at automotive OEMs and at one of the famous engineering service providers. Could you please share with us major differences between working at an OEM and engineering service provider?
I think that's for
Will
Marco because,
will
yeah,
you start?
Marco. No,
Okay,
Marco,
okay, I
because
can start.
actually you worked at Audi and then AVL. So
Yeah.
I think,
I mean, when you look to an OEM, yeah, so they are dealing with mass production, and everything must be perfect when it comes to the organization, how to manufacture a car. You cannot imagine if one bolt or one screw is missing, you cannot sell this car, you cannot produce it, and it's a huge effort um, to get this bolt again afterwards into this car. And therefore, everything is very much regulated. So the processes are very stiff and well structured, but very stiff. And this is also, you can see, because this is a part of the mentality of the people, also in decision making processes. They are long, they are very solid, but they are very long. So flexibility is a real problem for those OEMs in general. When you work for a service provider, let's say for ABL, for example, as we did, you need much quicker and faster decisions. You are much more customer orientated, because when it comes to projects, because that's the difference between a project business and a product business. An OEM has a product business, a service provider has a project business. You need to fight for every single project to win it again and again and every day. That's the reason why you need to be much, much more customer focused than a OEM. An OEM is more product focused. I need a good product, and then people will buy. But they are not really fighting like hell for every single car sales, as a engineering provider is doing it for their projects. I think that's the biggest change, or the biggest difference.
Thank you. We have reached our time, but we have 3 more questions if you'd like to
Let's
stay
take
to
them. Yeah.
answer. Thank you. Bill Gates is asking, do you believe millennials and Gen Z require different types of leader? I think you could both answer the question.
So it's a
Maybe.
very short question. I think yes, definitely. And I think also we need this spirit of this generation within the leadership already today. We cannot wait that they are old enough getting the leader or becoming leaders, but we need this spirit, and the requirements of this generation we need already today in the leadership.
No, I agree. I think, I mean, everything has changed, right? If you look at how the society was 20, 30 years ago, and how society is now, even if you look at the discussions around social media and how social media impacts the way the people decide and sees the world. So this is like, so it's not just the workplace. I think that everything has changed. But if I look at the Generation Z, I see that first of all, they like to see a mission. They like to believe in the mission, right? They like flexibility. They like to challenge the rules, and they have many choices actually, which is a good thing, right? They don't have to stay in that city. They don't have to work for that company. They don't have to be in that country. So without the choice, so there is a lot of freedom. So that means we should definitely approach them in a different way to attract these people, motivate them, and ensure that we can create the right culture to be competitive in these difficult times. And to me, that's kind of also connects to the next question, which is from one of our Etronians, Christoph, asking.
Thank you. Well, Christoph is asking, thank you for the insights on what new generation of engineers are looking for. But as a young organization, do you attract the right kind? How do you attract the right kind of talents in the first place?
Well, again, maybe I take this, and then Marko, you take the last one. And I already hinted some of the things. The first thing is, in my case and for e-tron, we show that we have a clear passion, right? Passion, and we know what we want to achieve. I believe very strongly on engineering passion. I actually believe that engineers are a special type, right? Because we create tools, devices, inventions that make society better in different areas. And I also personally believe that, this is not as much appreciated when people take a plane. They don't understand that, hundreds, thousands of engineers in the last 50, 60 years who developed that plane. Now people enjoy safely that this 30, 50, 70, I don't know how many tons, probably more tons of this metal flies in there, right? Actually, it's like magic. So first we bring that, mission and passion into the front, but then we look at the right culture. It's very important that you bring the right culture, and you show that at e-tron or in that young company, there is a culture that will support them, that will listen to them, that will make them better people, better engineers, and we nurture that talent, that passion into them as well to create the best leaders going into the future. And I know that I'm using a lot of, hype things, and everyone talks like that. But you also need to make sure that you communicate this genuine feeling to the other side. And if they believe in you, they will follow you. That's very, very important.
And
Marco,
I
you want
think,
to add?
yeah, I want to add one thing. I think when you work for a big company like Audi, for example, then you will become, and now I say black and white, yeah, you will become the best engineer who knows everything about the right outer mirror, and this you do 25 years. In smaller companies, you have a very broad working place and a very broad task. You can work on many different things. And I think this is very attractive also for young people joining smaller companies, startups, for example, because you learn a lot. You learn much quicker and you can see a lot more than in a big company.
Thank you. Mustafa, last question. You both have PhD degrees. Please do not get me wrong, just an open and honest question. Especially in automotive industry in Germany, we see lots of leaders slash higher managers with PhD degrees. Does PhD degree help leaders, or they would be better have an MBA degree?
Very good question, Mustafa. But Marco, please, you do
Yeah,
that. And Britt,
and
there is one more question from Annette. We should also take that.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I, I think still in Germany, the automotive industry is very conservative, so it will stay at least a few years that PhD is valued in order to become a leader. But I think it's not necessary. A PhD is just another, let's say, high class master thesis where you learn how to work in a very special way. But it's not mandatory to have this in order to become a good leader. I think you can see it also in the industry. Many people who has no PhD, they are also good leaders and they grow companies in a much faster way than PhD leaders or leaders who has a PhD working for a big company. I think it's not necessary. And in the new times, I think more and more it becomes a little bit more flexible here.
No, I agree. I mean, the question was, do you should you have a PhD or MBA to be a better leader? Honestly, it's not directly relevant, PhD or MBA. I think neither of them would make you a better leader. But in my opinion, what makes a better leader is the curiosity, right? Keep learning, keep developing yourself, having a good network, meeting new people regularly. So those are the things you should have to become a leader and keep staying, at a high level as a good leader. But Britt, let's take the last question.
Yeah. So Annette, another Eternian, is asking, I believe one of the biggest challenges the leaders of today have is the diverse workforce they have to manage, especially with respect to managing styles each other's worker is used to slash expects due to their generational experience. Would you agree?
That's absolutely
Marco?
right. Yeah. So the the requirements to the today's leader is much bigger and higher than the years before. That's right. I would say absolutely yes.
Umut?
No. I also agree, but sometimes this is not that easy, right? We don't have time today, but sometimes also everyone is very busy and could be difficult to apply different. So answer is yes, but it's not straightforward to do this during the busy
It's
day-to-day
not easy.
operation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for joining our last talk of the year, and thanks to everyone who has joined today and who has asked a question. We hope to see you in the next year. Happy holidays, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Marco.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year 2023. Bye bye. Thank you
Thank
for your
Thank you.
invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.